I used to go and empty the trash during the summers. And I'll tell you what, you go down to empty trash at a community beach where people have thrown meat and dirty diapers, and you're emptying trash with just maggots, covered meat and all this stuff. But the thing is, when you do something like that as a young adult, you have an appreciation for what real work is.
In your 20s, you have time. You don't have time. You do not have time in your 20s, especially when you have a son. Why? Because you have someone like me on the other end. You have someone like you on the other end that is taking advantage of all 16, 17-hour days. We are there. We're hungry. We'll do whatever it takes. So you're competing with us. You don't have.
Welcome to the Chris Salerno Show, your go-to for real estate, business, health, and family insight. I'm Chris Salerno, CEO of QC Capital. Each episode, we explore the latest trends and expert advice from industry leaders. Whether you're an investor, entrepreneur, or seeking balance, this show provides an inspiration you need. Join us and elevate your game on the Chris Salerno Show.
Welcome to the Chris Salerno Show. I'm your host, Chris Salerno. I'm very excited for this episode. I have another individual named Chris, who I've known for quite a while. I mean, 4.5 years now?
At least, yeah.
Yeah, since my son was a baby. He's not too far from Charlotte. He lives in Asheville. He's a wealth of knowledge, also a coach. So get ready because you're definitely going to want to sit tight and take some notes on this episode. Chris, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, I'm glad we could do this in person.
I know, right?
Yeah, this is like pre-COVID, man. This is awesome. The studio's great. It's awesome to see you in person.
I know. Let's knock on wood COVID 2.0 doesn't come back around.
That's right.
I know. It's been wild. And I remember that driving up to Asheville, it was literally during COVID. Yeah. And I was very happy that you'd wanted to meet in person because most people, shelter themselves, and we have the same views on that as well. But tell the listeners a little bit about your background, how you got started, because you're in the same business as I am.
Yeah, Chris, thank you for that. So I'm a little older than you for the audience that doesn't know.
Hold on. Before we get started, you're a little older. However, you look a ton times better. I'm going to say this. You and I went to F1 Miami.
Yeah, thank you.
Year.
You invited me. Yes.
Yes, we went to F1 Miami.
Can I tell this story real quick?
Please, yeah. Go
so
ahead.
I get this phone call. Yeah. And I have a sauna. Love getting the sauna in the evening. It's like my reward for the end of the day.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I have to do a sauna.
Yeah.
I do that all the time. Sauna, steam room.
Oh, it's so great. So I'm sitting in the sauna. It's about 5 o'clock Monday night.
It was.
Yeah, 5 o'clock Monday night. And Chris calls me. I'm like, hey, Chris, what's up, man? I'm sitting in the sauna, just chilling. And he goes, do you want to go to the F1 race this weekend? I'm like, of course I do.
Yeah.
Well, this is Monday. The race starts Friday.
That's right.
And you tell me, hey, I got an extra ticket if you want to go. I'm oh, dude, I would so love to go, but I got a lacrosse tournament. I got this and that. I was like, I'm married. I got kids. I got stuff. My wife's amazing. So I said, I got to check with my wife.
She is phenomenal.
Yeah,
she's phenomenal.
Yeah. So I talked to her. I told her the situation. She goes, you got to go. We'll figure it out. So 4 days notice, I got to go down to Miami with you guys, which was wonderful.
I would love for your wife to create a coaching program, a book on how how to be married to a high-leveled man like yourself.
To a jerk.
You are far from that, because she does a phenomenal job.
She really
to
does.
say, hey, go ahead and go enjoy it. Yeah. So you came down on a Friday, picked you up from the airport. We had a nice condo, very nice condo in Hollywood, Florida, and we all had our separate rooms. And Chris is out in the kitchen. I don't know if you were making coffee or something.
I just got back from the gym.
You just got back from the gym, and you are ripped. I'm 29 years old, and I'm like, I wish I looked like that now. Like, you take care of your body.
We got 25 years to figure it out. Or 15 years to figure it out.
And I'm going to limit that because I got you to help me. But before we dive into your health and how you stay at such of a high level, both physically, mentally, making sure you're eating the right foods to look as good as you look. I was like, holy cow, like literally like ripped. We're going to dive into that because I want everyone to understand, what you eat, what you do on a daily basis. And then you also operate at a very high level, your business. You're a phenomenal husband, to your wife, and a phenomenal father as well, taking them across the United States to make sure they can excel in any sport that they want to. Before we dive into all that, I'll let you talk. Tell us about your background, how you got started into our industry and everything from that.
Yeah, thank you. And actually that, all jokes aside, your health and your wealth are very interconnected.
You have to.
Yeah, and it's all the same kind of fundamentals when it comes to that. So, along that line, Chris, I started racing bicycles when I was 14 years old, the same age as my older son right now.
I love that.
And I never really kind of fit in like in other sports. I played baseball, I played basketball. I was okay. I was actually kind of a pudgy like middle school kid, like a little soft.
Really?
I wasn't a great athlete, like natural athlete. But I found cycling, and I hit my growth spurt at the same time.
What drew you to cycling? Cycling's, I mean, I cycle at Lifetime. You know, I hop on those little cycles. I'll hit, Italy, and I'm doing it. But it's nothing like what you're doing.
No, it's and I race road bikes. So
which that's a whole different level.
It is, and it's again one of those things. Like I never really felt like I fit in these other sports.
Correct, like football, baseball, because road bikes is not in high school. You don't have a club or you're going to compete.
It's kind of like a misfit sport in a lot of ways. But I was actually a musician.
Okay.
So I played string instruments. My mother was a pianist, and she got her major in piano, her minor in oboe.
Okay.
And she was a music teacher before she had my sister and I.
Okay. So that's different. Music teacher, because you're very intelligent when it comes to business. So she was a music teacher. Totally different. Okay.
Yeah, and she was an intelligent woman, but
I'm sure.
She was a music teacher. That was her passion, her love. She played piano in the church choir. So I used to go to church on Wednesdays. I'd sing in the choir. I'd sing, on the weekend.
Can you sing for us right now?
No, I'm not going to do that. No. Yeah, that was before my voice changed.
There you go.
I had like a soprano voice back then. No church choir.
I'm going to ask her for some video clips.
There you go. Well, unfortunately, she's not around anymore.
That's right.
She's not
I'm
with
sorry.
us anymore.
I remember that because her eggnog is the best.
That's right.
And that was the first time I ever tried eggnog for your Christmas party.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. Like I didn't know it. Like I've heard of it back and forth, but I was like, okay, I love
It's
eggnog.
real eggnog.
And so then I tried it again somewhere else, and I was like, I just can't. I can't do it. Like, it's not as good.
Yeah. No, it's
phenomenal.
We can get into that too, and like the story of her eggnog. But yes, I started racing bikes when I was 14. I was in the marching band.
Okay.
So I went from being like kind of cool in the marching band to super cool racing bikes and shaving my legs, right? On the coolness scale, I was barely scratching the bottom.
Oh yeah.
I was in math club. Like I was more intellectual and more musical. But at the same time, I didn't feel like I fit in those groups either. I was like, because to say I was like too cool for band is kind of like it's making fun of myself, right?
Yeah.
But I was president of the National Honor Society in our school, so I did well in school. But I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I didn't love school, and again, I didn't feel like I fit in these other sports. I was playing baseball. I was pretty good.
Yeah.
I always hit the ball well. I was a catcher. I like kind of being in the center of everything and kind of reading those sort of things.
Most definitely.
Yeah, but we had a family friend at church that he found out I got a new mountain bike for my 13th birthday.
Okay.
He said, hey, I ride to Annapolis every Saturday morning, which is about 10 miles, and back. We ride there. We'll get I get a cup of coffee, we can get a bagel or something, ride back. You should join me. And I was like, cool. So here I am in like my sneakers and I think I did have bike shorts at the time, and we rode there. I was 13 years old. That fall, he competed in a race, and I went to watch him, and I was like, I got to do this.
And that's a street race.
Bike race. Yeah, a road race. Yeah.
Got it.
So, and this is actually of significance. It was in Crofton, Maryland.
Okay.
And so the next spring, I saved up all fall, all winter.
Oh yeah.
Had a paper out, and I bought a road bike that following spring. And I was like, I'm going to start racing bicycles.
Most definitely.
And so I did that. And I went from 5'6", 135 pounds, to nearly 6 feet tall, 135 pounds.
What was your mom feeding you?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I would eat like 3 McDonald's like cheeseburgers as a snack after school, a full Subway sub. I'd eat like 20 chicken McNuggets. I didn't eat healthy. I was eating crap. But then when I started racing bikes,
you're like, you got that fuel you're putting into your system. You have to put good fuel in it.
Exactly. So I grew. I grew. I got skinny. I got lean. And then I was also riding, and I would train like 1, 2, 3, 4 hours a day after school. And I met my best friend Chris, also another Chris in the Chris Club.
I love it.
And I was just about to turn 15. I'll never forget. And I meet him at this race. I'm talking to him, and I was like, "Well, how often do you ride? How often do you train?" He goes, "Every day." And I was like, "I gotta train every day."
Yeah, that's right.
And I sucked that first year, but I did a low-level race, second race I ever did. And we came around the last turn, and I'm with the men.
Yeah.
And my mom was there. I came out of the turn, and I sprint by everybody.
Really?
All the men.
You take off.
Everybody. And I'm seeing the line coming, like I'm gonna win the race.
Oh yeah.
Well, in race bikes, you have you have pedals. They're called clipless pedals because they used to be called toe clips. They used to put your feet in.
Yep.
But the new pedals are called clipless
because they clip on.
Yeah,
the
but
bottom.
people call them clip-in now.
Yeah.
But they're like they're designed the same way as your ski boot, right?
Just, boom, hop them in.
Mine weren't tight enough. I pulled my foot out and crashed at 30 miles an hour into the pavement on my face right in front of my mother, and I didn't win that race. But I'll never forget. I was like, I was going to win that race. So that got in my head.
Yeah.
And it was like that taste, that I was chasing.
Oh, you were right there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the next year I won the state championships, and that was I was
made
off
sure
to
it was tight.
Absolutely.
You were locked in there.
Yeah. Same course.
Yeah.
In the juniors, but I won that race. So I fell in love with the sport. I started training. Went to Virginia Tech to race bikes. And that's when I really, kind of felt, I was like, hey, I got a lot of self-confidence.
Oh, yeah. And those bikes are expensive too. Let's talk about that. I mean, because you and I are F1 fans, obviously, and I know Valtteri Bottas. He's a huge biker.
Yeah.
Those bikes are expensive. I mean, you're talking somewhat 10, 15 grand for those bikes?
Yeah. So if you get a pro bike.
Like a big, high end.
Absolutely. So
and they're light. Like you can pick them up with your pinky.
Yeah. And what's wild is the International Cycling Body, the UCI, they limit the weight. It actually has to be kind of like F1 cars. They say, hey, there's certain restrictions.
Correct, yeah.
Right? Very, very similar.
Yeah.
And actually, there's a lot of collaboration.
Oh, really?
Between
with the rules and regulations?
With the technology.
With the technology
yeah.
on it. Wow.
So these bicycles a lot of times cost more than a motorcycle because of the technology that goes into making
designing them. And
exactly.
Wow.
It's got to be light. They got to be stiff. And yeah, so the bikes that the pros are on, they're somewhere between 10 and 20 grand. So 15 grand for a bike that the pros are on. Which you and I can go down, we can go to a bike shop and buy the same bike that the pros are in, which is pretty neat because you can't do that with an F1 car.
No.
Unless you're, Elon Musk or something, you go buy an F1.
100%. I mean, I've actually seen, so on the F1, I get their emails, they actually auction off cars. But, they're going $500,000 a million.
Right.
And they're like the model cars and things like
can
that.
you even drive those on the street?
I don't I know, but I did see one guy make it street legal. Obviously, in North Carolina, you can't because you got inspections. But there's one guy I saw that actually made them street legal. That would be pretty fun.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you gotta pedal your own bike. But now there's e-bikes and all this sort of thing. But yeah, so when I was a junior, my first bike was like $800.
Wow. And that's big back then.
It was. Yeah. Oh yeah, for a 14-year-old kid.
Oh, most definitely. That's huge.
That was a lot of money.
Oh yeah, and
a lot of money.
Your mother's a teacher. Like that's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. And my father passed away when I was 5. So I had a stepfather. But between the two of them, I made more money the first year I started working than the two of them combined.
Wow.
Yeah. So we lived. It was fairly humble.
Yeah.
Being raised, we had enough. We had everything we needed.
Most definitely.
But and I think there's a lot to be said for that because you learn a lot of lessons.
You do. Most definitely.
When you have to work for all that stuff.
I remember my first job. I was 11 years old.
Yeah.
And I worked to clean dishes. I got paid $20 cash that night. I had to stay back in the dish. There was a little corner. I had to stay back there because I was too young.
Yeah.
They didn't want people
seeing me.
seeing
You're not supposed to be working.
No. But my parents would take me after school up to the local restaurant, drop me off. I'd work till 11 at night. They'd pick me up. I'd go home. And that's the first time I started working was 11.
That's awesome.
And I got that itch, and I was like, I love it. I'm addicted to it. Like I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think people need to go through that, especially at a young age. I didn't come for money. I remember growing up in a duplex and sharing a bed with my grandmother at the time. And I think it's super important to coming from those backgrounds because when you actually achieve success in your own eyes, because success is defined differently in everyone's eyes, you actually enjoy it.
Absolutely.
And you appreciate it more.
Absolutely.
And then you're able to show your kids, how to appreciate it. And 100%. That it is good growing up in a successful family, but because of that appreciation for it, it's a different level.
It is. And that's the thing. My first job, I was, I had my paper route.
Yep. I remember that.
I sold wrapping paper before that, door to door. I used to go down to, now we grew up off the Severn River, which is the Severn River ends and it meets, I think, Magathie there, and there's the Naval Academy. Mm-hmm. So if you know where the Naval Academy is, the Severn River is kind of the other end of where I grew up.
Got it.
But it wasn't a super nice area. It's become much more affluent now.
Oh yeah.
The school systems were great, so my mom's like, we're not leaving this area.
Yeah.
But I used to go and empty the trash during the summers, like this time of year. Like it's June, it's like 90 degrees here in Charlotte today, and then we'd be on the around the Chesapeake Bay, it'd be 90 and 90% humidity.
Oh my goodness.
And I'll tell you what, you go down to empty trash at a community beach where people have thrown meat and dirty diapers, and you're emptying trash with, just maggots and, covered meat and all this stuff. But the thing is, when you do something like that as a young adult, you realize you have an appreciation for what real work is.
Most definitely.
My stepfather was a contractor. I shoveled shingles in July.
Oh yeah.
It's like you do these things, you do physical labor, and you realize, well, okay, that's okay every once in a while, but if you have to get up and do it, like today I was watching a bike race on TV this morning. I was making my son breakfast, and it was raining. And like half the field in the race crashed, and they actually neutralized the race because it was
that bad.
Yeah, but you think about it, I'm like, you know what? And I just remember thinking to myself, I'm glad I didn't become a professional cyclist because you have to ride. Like you don't get a choice.
No, you have no choice.
That's right. And some people, they don't have that choice. They have to get up and do physical labor to make a living.
100%. And that's what gets me is that people don't go through that physical labor. I remember I was 12 years old. There was an older couple. I loved them. There were two houses up, older, very older, and I would always go there, and they would pay me to dig holes, and they loved plants. So I would dig in big trees. So in their backyard, I would dig holes. And if anyone knows the Carolinas, it's clay. Oh, yeah. It's not like where I grew up in Florida where it's sand. Yeah. It's clay. Yeah. And I didn't realize that because I just moved here in 2007, and I was like, oh, this is not like Florida dirt. This is clay. Yeah. And so I would dig it in the hot of the summer, and it would have to be a certain, they were very particular about their plants, have to be a certain depth down before, I could put the plant in. I'd have to get it approved by him and then dump it in there, and then I'd get paid. Yeah. And what people, and maybe I'm a little hard, I'm like a David Goggins, but what gets me is that when people are sitting behind a computer screen and they're like, oh, this is so hard, I need a break. I'm like, you don't even know how hard it is.
No, perspective is something that,
oh my God, you need to go out and put shingles on a roof. That right there is one of the hot shingles, tar, all that. Like, you don't even know how hard it is. You're in air conditioning looking at a computer screen. Yeah. Like, I understand your eyes, put some glasses on, but you don't understand the true labor of those individuals that are in the construction industry out there actually doing physical work. People don't understand that.
They don't. And look, there's real data behind this. There's real science behind this. If you don't have that perspective, you don't know.
No, 100%.
I think I've heard this quote from Joe Rogan, but I think he uses it from somebody else. But it's like the hardest thing you've done is the hardest thing you've done. Yeah. If you haven't done it, then it's, and I feel for those people that haven't gone through hardship.
Most definitely.
There's a great book I read about, maybe 15 years ago. It's called, I believe it was Escape from Camp 17. And it's about a prisoner in North Korea, and his parents were in the prison camp, and he was born in the prison camp.
Oh, wow.
And now the thing is, you're in these prison camps, they give you like rice.
Oh, yeah.
And the meat you eat is if you kill a rat. So this guy's dream, he escapes and he tells the story from America, but his dream was to eat grilled meat. Like he heard about
grilling meat,
like meat, like a steak, right? Like that was his dream. Because he didn't have this. Well, the thing is, the prisoners that are born there in those camps, they don't kill themselves. They don't commit suicide. But I forget what the number is, but it's like half the people, maybe more. I forget what the exact number is. It's an overwhelming number. The people that are put into the camps kill themselves because they know how bad it is. But if you're born there and you don't realize how good you have it, you don't know. But he ended up escaping because one of the guys that was put into the camp tells him all these stories. He says, we're going to get out. The guy escapes. He escaped because the gentleman that was put into the camp escapes with him, falls on the electric fence, and he climbs over his dead body
to get him
to escape.
Wow.
And do that. But the point is, if you have it tough, then you can appreciate the things that you have.
Most definitely.
And that's what I think the challenge is in society. We say, we want to eliminate hardship. And I think we have to be careful what we wish for, because when we eliminate hardship, sometimes it's the pain and the suffering that gives us the purpose and
the
gives
appreciation.
Us the perspective. That's right.
And that's the biggest thing, especially with the kids in this society. I love that you are growing two young men. they are men, and
We're
they.
trying.
I know my son's 4 going on 25, so it's definitely difficult.
Yeah.
There's no blueprint book to raise a young man, but especially in this society, I think it's extremely harder. From when you grew up to when I grew up. I remember when MySpace was out, and I got MySpace when I was like 15 years old. These days they're growing up with all of this, and there's so much bad news that's getting put into their head, where you and I are having to talk to them to be masculine men in today's society, which don't get me wrong, I love it because there's a lot of weak individuals out there. So our kids are going to be lions. They're going to go out there and eat everything they can kill. But it's very difficult because if they don't have those blinders on, they may get distracted.
That's right.
And they're going to need to come back to us to have that foundation to understand, look, you have to work hard to appreciate what you do. I think I've told you this. We're now in the car wash space. You know that.
Yeah.
And we're owning car washes, but I take my son to a car wash after church on Sundays, and I make him vacuum his car seat and his side of the car.
Love that.
So he understands you have to take care of what you own.
That's right.
And it's labor intensive. You got to vacuum, you got to make sure it's clean, but you have to take care of what you own. If you do not do that, things will fall apart. And teaching them at a young age is super important, especially in this environment where they're so distracted with everything that's going on compared to how you and I, were raised.
Absolutely. And have skin in the game, right?
You have
when you go out and you earn your money, like my boys, they don't buy everything. We do give them certain things to get them in there. But
definitely.
But then we say, hey, you want another lacrosse stick? You want this, that? You have to go earn the money and do it. We give them the opportunities to do that.
Correct.
But that I think that's a great point, Chris. And, I do the same thing. We in the car wash space, the boys know, hey, we actually, when I took my older son for a bike ride 2 days ago, and we came home, and he knows we wash the bikes.
You gotta clean them.
We clean them and we put them away, and he knows now. It's not even a second thought.
Correct. It's already there. It's a habit.
Yeah.
It's okay. This is what we do. If I want to go ride a bike, this is the process of making sure that it's done.
Yeah. And that's a little lesson, but you can apply it to everything else.
It goes a long way.
That's right.
It goes a long way.
Right.
Just like you said, how health is so important in business. I work out every single day. I try to.
Yeah.
Now it's very difficult with our businesses that we run. And when I say work out, that's even if I just bought a treadmill so I can walk under my desk.
Yeah.
But even if it's
cool,
walking a mile.
Yeah.
Or some sort of activity. It's not heavy lifting in the gym, but it's some sort of activity to keep us healthy.
That's right.
And one thing I was really resonated with is that I've been very consistent over the past year and a half on every single day. And maybe there's 1 week I missed a day, but it's the same way in business.
It is.
We want it now. We want it right now, but people need to realize that it's going to take you 10, 15, 20 years to really ultimately grow. But the key is stay consistent with it.
That's right. It's a process. And that's actually a good segue because we were talking about, started racing. I went to college, and that same friend, my best friend, Chris, so he's a year behind me. He's come to Virginia Tech too.
I love that.
He gets in. So we're going to be roommates. I was super excited. So we go to a race in Pennsylvania. And it's actually this time of year. It was June 21st, 1997.
Oh.
And we go up to this race. I think we were in my car. I'm trying to remember if we were in my car or his car, but I think it was, I can't recall. But we get to the race, and we were in different categories at the time. I had just upgraded. I was a little bit older, right? And my friend said, "Oh, Chris crashed." I was like, "Huh." So I get back to the start finish, and he ended up. They took him to the hospital.
Oh wow! So it was a bad crash.
Well, he crashed, but what had happened was he actually had a brain hemorrhage.
No, I remember you telling me
and
this
he
story.
died.
Yeah,
and
unbelievable.
So I go to the hospital.
Young in college, healthy.
Yeah, he was. By all accounts, he was healthy, but it was like a time bomb in his head, right? So he had just turned 18 a month before. I just turned 19 a couple of weeks before, and I actually went in the hospital. I was the one that identified him because the doctor had me come back.
That had to be hard.
It was, and it was. I had no idea what was going on. Right when I walked in there, I took his bag with me because I didn't realize.
Unbelievable. So losing your stepfather at 5.
Yeah. Well, my father. Yeah,
your father.
Yeah.
And then now, basically your best friend.
Yeah.
High school. Now your college roommates.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
training
that's
partner.
A lot.
He was like a brother. So I go back to school, and I raced for another year. And that year I went back, I won that same race that I saw.
I love that.
That I saw my older friend, our family friend, do the first race that inspired me to do it.
Love that.
And then the following year, I was in such good shape that it was a 2.5 mile loop, and we lapped the field with the group I was in.
Unbelievable.
And then we were back in the field, and somebody had thrown tacks on the road.
Oh, no.
And I got a flat tire, and I got spit out the back, and my whole team waited for me because, I was in the lead with this group, right?
Most definitely.
And I was so strong at the time, I rode away from them, got back to the field.
On a flat tire?
Well, I changed my wheel, but I had to stop, get a new wheel. Rode. They waited for me. I rode away from them, caught the field, and then rode straight through the field and won the race a second time.
Unbelievable.
And the thing is, I won, and I didn't feel anything. And I got back to school, and I was like, what's going on here? And what I realized was, this is silly. I'm riding my bike around in circles. Like, what am I doing with my life?
What are you doing?
I need to do more with my life. And that's, we talked about the importance of hard work when you're young. I think this is another thing. Malcolm Gladwell talks about something called desirable difficulties. And this is the things in life that we face that make us stronger, make us better people, make us more successful. Now, you have to have the community and the structure around you.
Most
like you were talking about, Chris, having, caring parents, church family,
most definitely.
Some sort of community to bring you through.
Correct.
And look, that's why I think it is so important that you have, you have to have, parents. You have to grow up in an environment. This idea that, you don't have to have parents growing up and it's not a big deal, but you look at not having a father in the home and the difference it makes, right?
Most definitely. And
it's a big deal.
That's something. So we donate 2% of our profits to Charlotte Angels, which is a family and foster kids here in the Charlotte community. And that's one thing that we were talking about, is that the absentee of fathers in families is so significant. It's unbelievable. And it's super important. And for those individuals out there, I didn't come from a very wealthy family, and so I'm not taking my father's advice. With all respect, he passed away a couple years ago. I wouldn't take his advice because I knew their way with money. So I knew, okay, well, I don't want to be like that, so I'm not going to take that advice.
And there's lessons in there too.
Correct. And I learned what not to do.
That's right.
And I love that. You always have to see the positive things. So I learned what not to do on how to manage money, how to place money in investments and things like that. So then to find a group of individuals, it's super important to find that mentor or find that coach or find individuals that are where you want to be.
That's
Work
right.
for free, get in that circle, and then keep you make sure you're surrounded with it.
Exactly.
Even to bounce ideas off. I had Ian, Ian, he in F1 with us. Today I had something come up, so I called him and I'm like, look, I know the answer, but I need to tell you it to hear it out. And then obviously he's going to give me his honest feedback, but I'm like, I need to get it out of my mouth so I can resonate differently. And you need those people in your circle when you're growing large businesses or any type of career you're in.
Anytime.
It's super important.
It's super important. And it could be a coach. It could be a sports coach. It could be, like I had a family friend at church. It could be your parents,
100%.
but that family structure, that community structure is so important to have. So when you do face those difficulties in life, when you do fall down, sometimes you do need a hand to get back up. And I strongly believe that, I know some people may think that the government should be there. I think that having these community structures or family structures,
I think it's better.
Very important, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. No, I agree. I think it's better than the government because the government, is my opinion, brainwashes everyone through elementary, middle school, and high school to go to college to be successful. That's what you have to do. Get in student loan debt, put your money in the Wall Street, then retire and let them manage your money. And that is not it.
No.
That is not it. And with more of these communities like you have, I know you have a phenomenal coaching program, which we'll touch about, but with those type of communities, people need access to it. And with these cell phones at our device,
it's incredible.
Hop on YouTube. All this is going to be on YouTube. Hop on YouTube, gain knowledge that way, and then reach out. Take that courage to reach out to those individuals to gain knowledge. And it's just super important people just take that action, but they're afraid to.
It's amazing. No, it is. And, it's the connection that we have, the ability to make. I was in the medical device field. We're kind of walking through my story, but
that's right.
I was on call for 12 years. And I remember sitting in the lounge one day and talking to somebody and kind of having a similar discussion.
Yeah.
And this younger gentleman, he's probably 10 years younger than me. He goes, "Oh, everybody should, have access to like free college."
Yeah.
like a free education. And I think maybe he said free education because he didn't say college. Yeah. And I said, but everybody does.
Correct.
And he looked at me, he goes, what are you talking about? And I pulled my cell phone out and I said, it's right here. I was like, you have a cell phone? He pulled it out.
And you did that back in...
Oh, that was at least 10 years ago. Yeah.
10 years ago. And Matt, I mean, you and I both know AI these days.
Oh, it's insane.
You know, I wish my teacher, I had a teacher tell me one time, she goes, you're not going to be able to just search everything up. I wish I could fast forward a day and be like, hey, have you heard of ChatGPT?
Yeah, you should go code. Well, you'd be screwed if you were a coder today because AI is going to take your job.
Oh, I know, right? Yeah, you better learn ChatGPT because you're going to be gone.
Yeah, well, we'll have to. I'll share a secret with the audience here that we're just releasing here that relates to ChatGPT. But yeah, the thing is, we have the ability to learn 100%. All this stuff today. And a lot of our government, it's bureaucratic, right? It's built on system. Whereas entrepreneurs, I'm very, very optimistic that we'll come up with these solutions. But going back to make my point, when you face loss, just like if you go through hardships in life, you're digging ditches, you're shoveling shingles.
So be ready and be prepared, and you need to have a strong mindset because you're going to. Absolutely. It's 100% fact you're going to.
The earlier in life that you go through challenges, my belief, this is my philosophy. Challenges, just like experience, just like knowledge, 100%. Compound over time.
100%.
So the earlier in life you face challenges, the easier your life will be going forward. So we shield our youth from these challenges, from these difficulties. Yeah. It's the opposite, in my opinion, 100%. Of what should we be doing. We should be putting them into situations where they fail, but they don't fail to the point where they can't get back up.
Correct.
If you can fail, if you can fall down and get back up, look, how do you learn to walk?
100%.
You get up, you fall down. You get back up again.
Yes.
Basically, walking is a controlled fall. Well, how do you learn to control your fall? You fall down.
100%.
Right?
The type of parenting I am with my son is that I will let him do something.
Yeah.
And I know he's going to fail.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, hey, go do it. And sometimes he's stubborn. He's like, no, I want to do it. I'm like, okay, go do it. And I will stand here. Yeah. And I coach him through it. And then when he can't do it, I'm like, would you like my help? Okay, ask me properly. And then I show him. And then now he knows how to do it. Now, sometimes I don't think he can do something and he does it. I'm like, wow, he taught me wrong. He's grown up fast, 4 going on 25. But it's super important to lead by, and that's by example.
Yeah.
You have to fail. You have to have that physical experience from failing.
That's right.
When I flipped my first 2 houses, I had a contractor steal $90,000 from me.
That's burning your hand on the stove right there.
And I was young 20s, and I'm like, that's all my money.
Yeah, it's all
I got 2 vacant houses now. What do I do? You know, and so yes, you can go ahead and go sue. He doesn't have your money. You're going to waste attorney fees. Doesn't make sense. And that's what went through my mind. I'm like, okay, I got to go. Just forget about it. Take it as a loss. Move on and get it done. And you have to go.
And you told me you didn't go to college. You paid for your education, though.
I did. I paid big time for my education. I dropped out.
But you wouldn't have learned that in college.
No, I would never. Not only that, you wouldn't learn that experience, but you wouldn't learn the feeling.
That's right.
And that's the biggest thing is through these experiences, both you and I have had, different and similar. It's the feeling, the pressure, the mindset, your mind playing things back and forth.
That's right.
College does not teach you that.
No, it doesn't. It's real life.
Correct. It teaches you the basics. And then those basic people get into the real life. And because of you and I going through those struggles and everyone else going through those struggles, they get torn apart, those college kids, because individuals like you and I know what it feels like to be down and get back up, knows what it feels like to be, in our back against the wall and to get out of it, where these college kids don't understand that, and they won't until they actually experience that.
That's exactly right. And then, the corollary to that is you have to go into these challenges and then succeed.
Correct.
To know. And that's why, like cycling, we were talking about that.
Oh yeah.
I'd go and ride, and you race, and you realize like, hey, it didn't, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
100%.
But then you also realize like, wait a minute, David Goggins, you referenced him earlier. He says, hey, when you think you're at your limit, you're probably at like 40%.
Correct. You're not even there.
That's right. And I wrote an article like, hey, the 40-hour work week, that's probably about 40% of what you can do. And it's like, hey, you want to be successful? Go work 100 hours a week.
Oh, yeah.
And think about that.
Do that at minimum.
Yeah, but think about it. 100 hours a week, that's, what is that? That's, that can be 16
weeks,
hours.
That's that's 5,200 a year.
Yeah. But, that's working like potentially 16-hour days, 6 days a week. And is that possible?
100%.
Sure, 100% is possible. I did it for years. Yeah. People are like, well, how did you start your real estate business while you were running a medical device distributorship? And the answer is I did 2 full-time jobs 6 days a week.
Unbelievable.
And people are like, well, how did you, like what, you wrote a book, you did this, you did that. I was number 3 in the country in our territory. People, it's like, well, how do you do that? You just do more.
Most definitely.
Than everybody else. But when Chris died, I want to make sure I make this point. It taught me something. And I'm, you know, I did go to college. I have an engineering degree, which definitely didn't teach me how to invest and do a lot of the things we do today. But
it helped mold and shape your mind. And,
it did,
grow.
and I think a certain way.
Correct.
And
engineers do.
yeah. And because you do so many reps.
Oh my God,
it's like crazy. But the best way I can describe it, Chris, is when you're young, and you know you're young, so you're getting there. You're a parent now, so you understand.
Oh yeah.
But when you're young, you think you're invincible, right?
You do. When you're younger, you do.
So think about it in terms of an equation. So I had a little whiteboard. I put it up here. So you know, if the value of time is you know, time itself divided by the days you're going to live.
Oh yeah.
And on the bottom is I'm going to live forever. That's infinity, right? So the value in that equation is 0 because you're dividing by infinity.
Correct.
As soon as you realize that time is finite, your time is finite, that number goes up exponentially.
Most definitely.
And I think that's why Malcolm Gladwell talks about this in his book. He says, hey, desirable difficulties, people that have lost parents are more successful. Why is that?
Yep.
I think it's because your brain is now programmed to understand that time is finite.
Correct.
And then when you get out of bed, you're like, I've got to, is this a clean show? I've got to work.
You can talk about
like, I've got to effing work today.
Oh,
like,
100%.
I can't waste a day.
And I talk about that as, you know, I love Gary Vee. I love some of the stuff he says. Some of the stuff I don't agree with is that in your 20s, you have time. You don't have time. You do not have time in your 20s, especially when you have a son. I can't believe my son's 4 already.
Yeah,
it's wild. I've known you for that long.
Yeah.
You know, and you do not have time. Why? Because you have someone like me on the other end. You have someone like you on the other end that is taking advantage of all 16, 17-hour days.
That's right.
You know, we are there. We're hungry. We'll do whatever it takes.
That's right.
And so you're competing with us. You don't have time.
That's
because in a blink of an eye, it's gone. And then I tell the team that they know, Stephanie knows, I like to work very, very quick. Yeah. And I will send her emails 2, 3, 4 a.m. in the morning because some nights I just don't sleep. I have a passion for what we do. Yeah. And it is, I'm pushing so fast because before you know it, the year's gone. I mean, we're in the middle of 2024.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Halfway done.
And so you look back and you're like, wow, it's already been 5 years.
Yep.
And if you're sitting there doing nothing or you don't have that drive, you're going to look back and be like, what did I accomplish in those 5 years?
Exactly.
Compared to, wow, look what I have accomplished in those 5 years.
That's exactly right.
Really big difference.
That's exactly right.
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. Just a quick reminder to make sure you never miss an episode. Stay connected with us by following us on social media platforms, Instagram, Twitter, Threads, TikTok at Chris_Salerno_. And don't forget to subscribe to YouTube to catch the video versions of our episode. You'll get exclusive content, behind the scenes footage, and much more. Head over to YouTube, Chris_Salerno now, and hit the subscribe button. Stay tuned because we've got more great content coming right after this.
And again, not everybody has that same perspective because they haven't gone through the hardships. And,
Correct.
And that's great. Like there's a lot of pain that I don't want my kids to feel that I went through.
Correct.
But how do you teach them that?
Yeah. How can you show them that, not the exact, of those hardships and pains, but how do you show them that in a different aspect?
That's right.
Where they don't have to see or be felt what you felt during those times.
Yeah. So, what I told our coaching group on Monday was, hey, who's excited? Like, we just had Memorial Day. Everybody's excited. Summer's here. Like, we can slow down and have some fun.
Real quick, I love holidays. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I love Christmas. My favorite holiday. But with all respect to everybody, I hate holidays. Monday on Memorial Day, and trust me, I love our veterans, and I thank our veterans dearly for everything they do where we can, prosper and have businesses. Yep. But when a holiday falls on a weekday, holiday should fall on a weekend. It shouldn't fall on a weekday because everyone doesn't work, and it's just like, okay, now I just lost, you don't want to call people because everyone's with their families. So it's like, what do I do? And so what I have found on holidays is I work on systems. Systems, holes in the systems. How can I tweak
Stay
those?
Focused.
Correct. Yep. Stuff that I'm not calling clients or things like that because they're busy with family. How can I do the internal stuff? Better tweak our systems because holidays just gets me. I don't know.
I love that, and I wrote a blog article. It's like how to create 20 to 40 more hours a week, which is super easy.
Oh my god, yeah.
So look, stop surfing.
Yep.
Facebook or what do people use now? Instagram.
Yeah.
TikTok,
Twitter, all that.
Yeah. Get rid of that. I love. Look, I was saying I caught a little bit of the bike races this morning. I was making breakfast for my kid. Love watching F1 races.
Oh yeah.
I watch the lacrosse games. We're going Saturday night with my boys, like we saw each other last year.
Oh yeah.
But if you are trying to move your business ahead, your life ahead, you might need want to cut that out for a little bit of time. Limit it. 100%. Make it a reward and do that. Like the time we have. If you're working, if you're like, I work full time, I got this and that. I guarantee you, if I sit you in this room
and really
you're not
break
achieving
down
your dreams,
those 24 hours,
I can easily, like without a doubt, I can give you another 20 hours a week. Easy.
The issue is that people don't want to sacrifice something. And what I have found through my journey, and thankfully I found it at a young age, is that no matter what you do, you're going to sacrifice it. One of the biggest guilts I have is when I leave my son to go work.
Yeah.
Because I love my son.
That's
I
right.
have a passion for him. I love hanging out with him. I love doing little quirky things with him.
Yeah.
I truly love that kid so much. But it's a guilt, and no one's ever told me, hey, Chris, you're going to have guilt when you go to work. But it's the guilt when I say, hey, I got to go. So now it's a fun thing. I say, high five. Hey, I got to go to work. He goes, you're going to work? He goes, I see you soon. Love you.
Yeah.
And so that right there, I am giving up time with my son to build something that hopefully one day he can take over.
That's right. And he's seeing that, Chris.
Correct.
He's seeing that as an example.
It's instilling in him, which I recognize that, and that guilt slowly went away because it's leading by example. But you're 100% right. With those individuals, if you're breaking it down hour by hour, 20 minutes by 20 minutes, there's so much you can cut out, but people don't want to give it up.
Exactly.
And that's the biggest issue with themselves, is that they are not wanting to give that up, and they're limiting their own success.
Yeah, and the question is, like, what do you really want, right?
Correct.
You got to get clear.
Correct.
And, so I asked my coaching group, like, hey, who's excited for summer? And you can either choose to chill for a few months or you can change your life in the next few months.
100%.
But you have to have a vision. You have to do that. And I think, so David Meltzer is one of my favorite kind of, if not a mentor, like a virtual mentor. He joined us at a retreat that Jess and I were at, my wife and I were at this spring. And he says, happiness comes from three things. It comes from being productive. It comes from being accessible, and it comes from being grateful.
Love it.
And think about it. So if you're listening, think to yourself, like when were your happiest moments?
Yep.
I'm happy when I've been productive.
Most
when
definitely.
I'm doing something. I'm happy when I'm accessible. I love being here with you and
100%.
sharing.
Most definitely.
Trying to do that. We're trying to become even more accessible, which is that the GPT, that project we're working on. But then also gratitude, like when you say, oh, thank you, like thank you for giving me something and doing
Most
that.
definitely.
So look, if you want to be happy, you have to be productive. You have to be accessible. Give of yourself. Whether that's money or time or your knowledge. But also you have to be appreciative for what you have and do those things.
Most
and if you're
definitely.
just sitting around not doing much, if you think to yourself, hey, I'm not happy, you should ask yourself, am I actually being as productive as I could?
100%.
And I think the thing is, we realize when we're not doing that. I realized that we actually stopped our coaching program last year.
Oh, did you?
Because we had too much going on. I couldn't do it all, Chris. So I had to pause on something, and that's what we had to do at the time. But I was like, why am I not feeling as fulfilled as I was? And it was because I wasn't being accessible.
Yeah.
I'd hired a new director of investor relations. I wasn't talking to investors every day, had more time.
Yeah.
Wasn't doing my coaching calls every day, had more time, but I wasn't as accessible. And I realized I missed that. So we ramped that up this year, really leaned into it.
Something that you said is understanding the vision, where you want to go,
Yeah.
what you want, what is your purpose.
Absolutely.
And so, it's super important that you understand that. And when you were writing, you had the strategy with your friend, and then you sat down with yourself and you're like, Chris, you told yourself, Chris, why am I riding bikes in circles?
That's right.
So
Literally.
talk to us about that moment where you sat yourself down and you talked to yourself, Chris, why the hell am I riding bikes in circles? What's next for me? What is my purpose? What is my that goal that I wanted? Talk to us about that.
Yeah. So I go back to school. I quit. I was like, this is not what I want to do. Sold all my stuff.
Sold it all, quit.
Yeah.
Boom.
I mean, dude, I had a couple girlfriends when I was early in college, but they never really lasted because I had more important things to do, ride my bike, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, I got to,
you got to give up something.
That's right. Well, yeah. So, because I didn't go to parties, I didn't drink coffee. I wouldn't even take an Advil.
Really?
So I was real fun, right?
Wow.
But when you go to bed early and you do
we had a
stuff,
good time at F1 together.
Yeah. Oh, we did. Yeah. It's okay. So I moderated a little bit. Exactly. I didn't go out till 3 a.m. with you guys though.
I know.
Be fair.
That was challenging.
But hey, anyway. But I was happier the next morning than you. I got a little more sleep.
Most definitely.
But what I thought what happened was I said, okay, am I really, after racing another year after Chris died, I said, am I really being as productive as I could be? That's like, if I think back now, I didn't say that, but I thought, am I really living my life? And I thought, am I honoring the life that I was given? And then I thought something else. Am I honoring Chris's life that he doesn't have? So maybe that's why I work twice as hard as everybody else, because I'm working for two.
Yeah. Most definitely.
And doing that. But I said, the big thing that I said to myself, Chris, was I don't want to have any regrets. Now, we always have regrets because we get to look back in hindsight.
Most definitely.
But I didn't want to say, if somebody was like, hey, you should come to this F1 race.
Yeah.
Now I don't say, oh, I can't do that. I say, how can we make that happen?
Give me a second. Let me talk to my wife.
How can we make it happen?
What can we do?
Life is about experiences.
100%.
Life is about connections and doing things with people. So, and that's what, as we get into like the investments and the business side of things, like what is it all for?
Yeah.
Money gives you the ability to create these experiences and these connections. And that's really where the juice of life is found, in my opinion.
That's why I say, I always ask this question is, does money buy happiness? And in my opinion, it does. Why? Because
greases the wheels.
Money buys experiences, which causes happiness.
Right.
Now, does money buy fulfillment? In certain aspects, money can buy fulfillment. Yeah. But I think the biggest thing is you got to love yourself. That's fulfillment.
That's right.
Is if you don't love yourself, you can't give or receive love. That's right. And that's something you need to work on yourself. And you can do that while you build a company. And I did that. And, and I love myself. I can travel by myself. I went to Spain last October by myself for 7 days. I enjoyed it. It was really, really fun and fulfilling. Yeah. But you got to learn how to love yourself. Yeah. Now, you found that path, you feel, you have to work hard and be productive, for both Chris's, you and the other Chris. Yeah. Now, what was that, coming out, you went straight into medical sales?
So I'm still in engineering school.
Still in engineering school.
Now, if you rewind my sophomore year, I did not want to be in school. I was probably depressed. Yeah. I wasn't happy. I'm just going to go ride my bike. I was actually going to spend a year out in California at another school, and I was like, I just want to train.
And real quick, at that time, who did you lean on? Because that's a tragic event.
I really didn't have a good community.
I was going to say, like, who was there that was your backbone?
Yeah, I had my cycling team, and that was it. Like, I'd go ride with my friends.
A bunch of buddies,
Yeah, so I had
but
like
that
our
really,
core
that
group.
Leader to, that was more experience, who was that?
I didn't have that person. And because I was the president of the cycling team, so I was in a lot of ways leader.
Everyone looked up to you. You were the person
in some circles. And then, as one of my friends called me one time, she said, "You're like king nerd." So there you go. Right? Like that was, I was like, "Is that a compliment?" Or I was like,
"She trying to flirt?"
I was like, She was definitely flirting, but it was very funny. She was making fun of me too. But she was right. I was like, okay, But when I went and I raced with my trade team, our travel team, like I really didn't have somebody that was a true mentor. And that, and that's my advice. If you're listening is find that person, like
100%.
Whether it's a coach or like I said, the community.
I mean, we spoke about it earlier. Find that individual, even if you have to go work for free, it's not working for free. You're gaining the knowledge.
Absolutely.
And that is more valuable than exchanging currency. Find that individual, understand that, and keep them close.
100%.
Keep them close. Learn how to add value to their life, because I promise you they'll add value to your life. But you want to make sure you have that highly successful group around you on where you want to be in life, because if you don't, you're going to be surrounded by individuals that are going to go nowhere, and you're going to be miserable.
Yeah, 100%. It's key. So I got back. I sold everything. I started living like a normal college life. I had to work hard in school to like get my grades back up, because my grades my sophomore year were very poor. And then I bought my first property. So
in college you bought your first property.
So I started day trading, because I was like.
So who opened your eyes to that?
Yeah. So as part of this whole thing, the same gentleman, Clint Provenza, and I talk about this in my book, which if you're listening, I'll share a copy with you here. I'll even send you one. But he gave me a money magazine and talked about the magic of compound interest. He talked about opening a Roth IRA.
Warren Buffett, compound.
Yep, investing in the stock market. So I started learning about that. I started reading this new website had just come out called The Motley Fool.
Oh, I've heard of it.
And they had like 4 people working there. So if anybody knows The Motley, it's huge.
They're
now.
huge.
It's
They're ginormous.
huge. I actually talked to them about going to work for them at one point.
Oh, really?
And they joked because they weren't like big enough.
Yeah.
So it's funny because it's interesting. But I was day trading. So I start day trading.
No.
And I get into it because I'm like not training 20 hours a week.
And
so
day
now,
trading's difficult. You know, you don't want to go buy GameStop.
And stressful.
GameStop stock right now. And, it fluctuates. So, your wins, your losses, talk to us about that with day trading.
Oh, I was making like $5,000 a month as a junior in college, day trading.
Which, so you were good.
That's a lot of money, right?
Oh my God. Yeah,
but
back then.
the market was on a tear. So then the market turned, and I had a really bad month.
Oh.
And I was like, man, I had nights I was like 3 a.m. I wasn't sleeping.
Like, what's
I'm
going to
like,
happen
this
tomorrow?
is not investing.
Yeah.
So I survived that. But
this is gambling.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Gambling.
I was like, this is gambling.
Yeah.
And
you're going to wake up, you don't know
old.
where the market's going to go.
Exactly.
It's gambling.
I'm 20 years old. I'm drinking like monster drinks in the morning because I hadn't slept. I'm like, I'm going to freaking kill myself if I keep doing this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to be 40 and living this life. This is not investing. This isn't financial independence. And what I realized was, hey, if you want to not have regrets and you want to have experiences, you need money. You need money. That's all there is to it. I didn't have money, right? I had a little bit of money in the bank, but I sold lofts. So I'd make $10,000 in one weekend when we got back to school. So people were like, well, you must have rich parents because I had like a nice Honda Accord and I had like a nice TV and I had my own townhouse at the time.
No, you made your own money.
And I was like going out. I was always kind of entrepreneurial. But I stopped day trading and I bought that first property because I said, hey, you can negotiate the price.
Yes.
This is a long game.
Physical asset.
That's right.
Yep.
So
you have more control.
That's right. Bought one property next year, bought the property next door. I negotiated with the guy I knew was leaving, right, and going to grad school somewhere else.
Now, how'd you buy that property? Seller finance?
I had my mom sign on the loan.
Okay.
I got not a FHA loan. It was, maybe it was an FHA loan. I'm trying to remember what it was. But I put $3,000 down, $3,000 down. And then I borrowed $10,000 from a line of credit.
Yep.
And bought the place next door. And then I kept doing that. So I just had single family rentals. And so I finished my undergrad. I didn't want to be an engineer.
When you finished, how many rentals did you have?
So I was a junior when I bought the first one. I was a senior in college when I bought the second one. So I had 2.
So you had 2.
I graduated. I bought a third in grad school. And then, so I'm starting to run out of money and credit.
Like, did you chop them up like student housing or just
whole buildings? So I had.
Then you were making the big bucks.
That's right. I had 2
because you rented it by
townhouses, and now they call it house hacking or
correct or co-living.
That's right. Yeah. So so here I am.
That's a lot of money because that's a couple hundred per room.
Oh yeah. So here I'm a grad student. I'm getting paid to go to grad school, so I got a deal with Virginia Tech. So I was making $1,500 a month, which back then that was like
that's a lot.
Yeah, we're talking like 2,000.
These days you can't even get groceries for it. With our economy,
you should see my Whole Foods bills more than that every month with our kids. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Just one bag of groceries. It's ridiculous.
It is. Yeah, you're like $200. You're like, it's. What
I know, and it goes like this, and then it's like, it's it's like $200.
And you only got one boy, dude.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And you got 2 growing monsters. Like
you just wait.
They're eating. They eat just like you probably ate when you were younger. You said.
Oh yeah, and they're and of
Plus,
course now
you are there to give them a lot more healthier foods. So that's obviously more expensive eating organic and things like that. And we'll touch on that later.
Yeah. So one of my favorite stories is I'll tell you a quick anecdote. So I'm in Orlando buying a property down there, and I call this a few years ago. I call my wife, and my younger son's there at lacrosse practice for my older son. I go, hey buddy, what you up? He picks up the phone. He's like, hey buddy, what you doing? He goes, oh, I'm just at lacrosse eating sushi. How white is that? Has anybody ever heard anything more white than that expression?
That's funny.
At lacrosse eating sushi. I was like, so these are the boys I'm raising. So I guess I should be proud. But yeah, I'm in grad school, man. I'm making $1,500 a month. I'm not only living for free, I'm making money. So it was. You look back, things were simple. I just met my wife. It was a great time. Great life, but I wanted more, and I'm running out of money and credit to buy properties. Right? You can't buy an apartment building on $1,500 a month.
Oh my God, no.
Yeah, you need something more than that.
For sure.
I was like, and I hadn't gotten to the point where I had learned how to buy, a
massive building.
Yeah, massive building, with investors and those sort of things. So I'm thinking still small but bigger.
Oh yeah.
And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I'm in Charlottesville. And I was reading, I read during that period, I read 250 books. I was reading at a minimum a book a week.
Unbelievable.
So I taught myself how to speed read, and I'm reading a book a week. And I was like, okay, so I'm always in a bookstore.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there in Barnes & Noble in Charlottesville, and this guy turns to me. He goes, I'm in the finance section. He's like, are you looking for something to read? And I go, yeah. He goes, hey, man, you should read this. It wasn't my book that he handed me.
Kiyosaki.
It was Rich Dad Poor Dad. It had just come out. So he hands me the book. I was like, cool. So I read it, and Robert Kiyosaki talks about sales. He talks about real estate. And I was always kind of in sales. I was like, okay, I'm going down the right path.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm like, this really resonated with me because I'm like, this is what I'm doing.
You were knee deep into it. You loving it.
That's right. But he said, you got to be accredited. So I then went and I found, I'm like, okay, so I'm looking like, what sales careers out there can I be accredited and do this? So I'm like, all right, I'm maybe a real estate sales or financial sales. And I was working for State Farm part-time. So get this, I'm working for the university. Mm-hmm. I get my real estate license, and I'm working for State Farm nights and weekends selling insurance.
You got 3 jobs going on.
3 jobs. So look, if you think you're like, oh, I'm busy, I can't do this and that. I'm in grad school. I'm working 20 hours a week for the university. I have my real estate license. I'm selling real estate with my senior partner. And I'm working nights and weekends for State Farm selling insurance. Yeah. So I'm talking to my agent who was starting his practice, and he's like, hey, dude, I don't care when you work, because basically I'm working when he's not.
Yeah.
You know, we're just trying to grow the practice. So after about a year working for him, he goes, you got to meet my friend, Alan. He's like, you'll love Alan. So I call Alan. I'm like, Alan, can I take you out to lunch? Mm-hmm. So look, if you're listening and you're like, I need to talk to this person or that person and develop, just ask them. Say, hey, can I take you out to lunch? Can I buy a cup of coffee? Yeah. You know, and if they're busy, probably they're going to say, hey, I can't go out to lunch with you, but what can I help you with?
Yeah. I'm direct like that now because I'm sure you're the same way.
Yeah.
You know,
we get asked
on a weekly basis, hey, can I just have a 15-minute call with you? I know it's not going to be 15 minutes. I know it's going to be a lot longer, but our days are very, very busy. So unfortunately, we do have to pick or choose. And, you know, I don't have time for coffees unless, you know, if it's a large client or things like that, or dinners or things like that. So look, hey, what is it that you need? You know, and most of the case is, hey, it's a book, or go to YouTube. You know, you can easily find it on there. You're just not thinking outside the box.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Or, you know, people call me. I'm like, hey, join our group coaching session. Yeah. Hop in. You can listen and do that.
Follow me on social media. You'll be able to see everything. You know, I post everything on there.
Exactly. Yep. So there's ways to do that. But I take this guy out, and I'm like, hey, Alan, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm in medical device sales. He sells hips and knees and joints. Now, remember, I got an engineering degree. It was biomechanical engineering. So I studied this stuff.
So you knew it.
And I'm like, this is friggin' awesome. Yeah. Like, you sell this stuff? And he's like, yeah, I go into surgery. I'm like, how much did you make? He goes, well, I started off and made like 75 grand. Now, remember, this is back in the early 2000s.
That's a lot.
He starts going through it. He goes, yeah, this year I'll make over 300.
Wait,
and
what?
I go, oh, yeah.
That's what you did. What?
I was like,
sign me up.
What do I have to do this?
Yeah.
So 5 years later, I got the exact same job that he did. Like, I worked up to that point. I guess it was less than that. 3 years later. So got my dream job, you know, and you know, took me about 5 years to really hit my stride and make that kind of money. But what I did was I had a rule: save 50%. So I'm crushing it. You know,
you're sacrificing that.
Yeah, making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, but I was saving.
To do.
That's right.
They're not willing to sacrifice that. You sacrificed because that other 50%, you can go spend it on all the luxury and, you know, the flashy stuff
and
today that is marketing to us, but people are not willing to sacrifice it.
No, I had people at the hospital. They'd find out where I lived, and they're like, "Are you doing okay?" They're like, "Why do you live over there? Why do you live in that area of town?" I'm like, well, guess what? That property appreciated faster than any other area in Asheville because, you know, I did the research on that. But the point is, I was investing that money. So here's a tip. If you want to save, if you want to, you know, create financial independence, if you save $1 for every $1 you spend, that means you buy yourself an hour for every hour you work, right? Because you can take an hour off. And if you can put that money to work in something earning, say, 15% a year, and you do that over the course of 7 years, the math is if you save 50% for 7 years and invest it at 15%, you will replace your active income
with
your passive income. 7 years, 50% savings, 15% a year.
But you have to struggle.
That's right.
You have to go through that. And it's the universe. It's God.
Discipline, though.
Correct.
Yeah, you can call it struggle, but discipline is tough, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's not easy.
Yeah, I had a friend. So we raced together in college. He was a national champ. He had a tattoo on his back. It said discipline.
Was it like a tramp stamp?
Kind of was. It's kind of weird,
God.
but yeah.
We won't ask.
It was a big one though.
You don't have that, do you?
No tattoos on my body. Yeah, it's all natural.
No, but it's super important, and a lot of times, and in 99% of the time, it's very difficult to discipline yourself.
Absolutely.
It is super difficult, and that's eating healthy. We all, cheat days, eating pizza. I'm a sucker for pizza. I love pizza. So it's hard to discipline yourself. So what do you need to do? You need to have that coach, that mentor, that body that surrounds you with multiple individuals to say, hey, you don't want to do that.
That's right.
That's not the right thing to do. Trust me, it takes time. That consistency, it will take time. You need patience, but you don't need to do that. And you have to have those individuals surround you.
And look, I don't have the best self-control. My wife jokes. She's like, I can't have ice cream in the house. You'll eat it all.
You eat ice cream?
I love ice cream. I have a terrible sweet tooth. But here's the thing, over time I've been
But you
able
work
to
out every single
that.
day. That's why you look like GQ.
Yeah. I'm coming back anytime you want to do these interviews. But I joke with my wife. I'm like, you don't have like a bunch of college girls running around wearing bikinis like in the house. And she's like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, that'd be temptation too.
Yeah.
And she's like, that's a terrible example. I'm like, well, it's kind of not if you're a guy. But anyway,
I understand you.
Yeah, like, come on. Like, my point was I was joking, but it's like you don't put temptation in front of your face.
Most definitely.
So look, if you're trying to save 50%, what did I do? I took that money immediately out of my account.
You didn't even look at it.
I didn't
and
even
a
look
lot
at
of times, if you're buying and selling real estate, go to the closing attorney and say, hey, wire it to here. I don't even want to see it.
Exactly.
Here's two different type of wires. This one goes to that account. I don't even want to see it. This one comes to my account. And that helps tremendously, that temptation, because it's not even being wired to the main account that you operate out of.
That's right. So my wife, I'm like, hey, I have the discipline not to buy the ice cream. She's like, you don't have any discipline. Well, I know
not to buy it.
Yeah, I know not to stick it in front of my face. So the strategy that we use to save 50%. So if people are watching, we wrote about it in a book, which I'm happy to send this to you too. It's called Money Insights. This one's for sales professionals, but we use cash value life insurance. So we would sock that money away that we'd have for later. Oh, yeah. We have a guaranteed rate of return and do that. It was very safe. And then we'd pull that money out to invest is what we did. But you can use the same thing with your daily life. So it's kind of reverse engineering. Like in finance, we're like, oh, go to work, pay your taxes, pay your expenses, and whatever's left over, you save.
Yep.
No. Here's what we do. You go to work, you take the money out to invest first. Then you pay your expenses, then you pay your taxes. That's how business owners do it,
yes,
right? We do it the opposite. If you want to be successful and you're trying to find more time, don't say, okay, let me find the time to work out or let me find the time to learn about investing and do these things. You plan your days.
Yes.
You put the non-negotiables. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to work out. I'm going to spend time with my son.
That's right.
I'm going to spend time, like my wife and I had a date night last night.
Love that.
You put all that in. You put the important things, like this time with you on the podcast. Then you fill, everything else will fill itself in.
Correct.
Right? Oh, I want to surf, I want to, read, the news, or I want to, watch a game or do that. Well, guess what? We live in a world where you can watch it. It's on demand anytime.
Correct.
It's on any
and
time.
you have to be careful on what's going to take your attention.
That's right.
We talked about it earlier. You have to be diligent on your time, and you have to be disciplined on your time, and be willing to say, hey, no, I can't do that.
That's right.
I say no a lot.
Yeah.
And
successful people say no way more than yes.
Oh, yeah. And I get told no a lot from investors. You know, when you're calling people and trying to get people to invest, you're going to get told no 99% of the time. Same with medical sales.
Yep.
Understand and
no.
take
That's
it.
right.
I love the no's because I'm going to find that one yes.
Yeah.
And you have to be disciplined with your time to tell people no, because everyone wants your time, especially the more successful you are, the more time they want of you. And also the more issues you're going to have. So you have to be able to say no and say it nicely. I mean, you don't have to be a dick about it. Say it very nicely, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And again, that's so, what we've done is over time, like I can't talk to everybody.
Correct.
So you put systems in place, just like I did when I was in med device sales. You put systems in place. You do, like we wrote the book, Chris. So it's like, hey, if you have a question about investing, you could read the book. You can go online. We just launched actually yesterday. Wait, what's today? It's launching on, by the time this podcast comes out.
There you
go. But it's launched on my birthday. It's called Chris GPT. So it's all the content that I've ever put together, all uploaded, and you can go on the website, nextlevelincome.com. It'll pop up, and you can ask me any question you want, and it'll respond with all the information.
I love it. I love it's the same name as mine. So
that's right.
It's
you
easy.
Can you can steal it.
I'll
You're
white
like, check
label
out Chris GPT.
I'll white label
Yeah, we
it.
don't. Maybe it's. I think officially it's nextlevelincome.com /AI. But I'm calling it Chris GPT. Like, what do I call this?
I'm gonna
thing,
white label and put on my website.
There you go. Yeah, I'll hook you up with a team to do it. But the thing is, it's like, okay, going back to the accessibility, I have to say no so much. So what do you do? Because I'm going to spend. Look, if you call me, I'm gonna spend time with my kids instead of you. Yeah. Like that's no offense. That's what's my priority, right?
Yeah.
And do that. So how do you replace that? And if you focus on, okay, I'm going to be productive, I'm going to be successful, but I'm also going to be accessible.
Yep.
You can do both. Like you can be a good father and you can be a successful business person.
Correct.
Now you might not be able to do both at the simultaneous time.
Correct.
But if you have the right goals and you have the right
and the discipline to time manage your schedule properly, you can do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So we're trying not to trade one for the other and do that. But we're excited about some of the stuff that we're putting out.
I love it.
More people. Yeah.
Medical device sales.
Yeah.
You got that ramped up, making great money, and then you're like, it's time to really take my real estate to the next level.
Yes.
Walk us through that.
Yeah. So I started out with the goal of being an investor, right? So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm like, okay.
So you knew I'm going to be an investor, but this is going to be my journey to become that.
That's right, because it was an investor first, career to fuel the investment.
Yep.
I think that's an important distinction.
Oh, it's most important because people will go on this journey and they're like, I want that up at top, but they don't understand you have to enjoy the journey.
That's right. The journey.
And that is the universe. That's life. That's God. They're going to tell you, hey, you got to go through that journey. And if you don't go through that journey, you're not going to get what you want.
That's right.
Because you have to go through the struggles. You have to go through the discipline, all of those challenges to reach what you want, but you have to enjoy the journey. And people just see that shiny object. And I talked about it earlier is that, people see social media and social media portrays so many different things. Like a lot of people don't know in UK, no matter if you're a private company, you have to go ahead and show your returns. You have to show your financials. If you're an LLC, you have to show your financials in the UK. So, all these influencers over there, they claim they're doing this. And then there's people out there now that are pulling their financials and like, hey, we're fact checking you. No, you didn't. And so, it's super important to enjoy that journey and go through those struggles to get there and get away from the social media, to see that because all these people out there are not who they may, portray themselves to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, it's good to have examples, right? It's good to have inspiration
100%
and do all that. But we all know the stories.
Yes.
It's like, you have this person who's a pastor, right? Who's cheating on his wife, or, this person who's a business person, a philanthropist who's like Bernie Madoff, right? These stories abound, and there's always going to be some of those bad people. So I think that's a good point, you make, Chris, which is, there's always people that aren't going to do the right thing.
Correct.
And you basically have to accept that and ignore it and say, okay, that's just part of life. Like I raced bicycles in the 90s. People are doing EPO and steroids, and I had friends going to Europe.
That was normal.
It was ubiquitous.
Oh my God! Yeah.
And I'm learning about it. I'm like, well, okay, I'm not going to do that. But then at some point, I said, okay, that was part of the reason I stepped away from the sport. Is I'm not good enough to really have to make that choice. I'm like, I don't really want to deal with that.
Yeah.
But that didn't stop me from enjoying the sport. I have friends that are still bitter over that, and I can appreciate that. But people would come up to me after Lance Armstrong was exposed and were like, "Can you believe that Lance Armstrong, did drugs?" I'm like, how do you not believe?
Like,
it's like
it's normal.
It's normal. It's like, oh, can you believe that Tiger Woods was having 12 women at a time? It's like, I mean, that's kind of crazy, because I think 2's enough, but I'm joking.
Yeah, 12's a lot to handle.
Thanks for the laugh.
I can't even.
I'm trying to make you laugh the whole time, and I was like,
you got her there.
Yeah,
I can't even handle 1. I mean, let alone 12.
2 is is too much, just for the record.
2
for
is
the
too
record,
much.
for the record. But no, but it's like, okay, the guy's like a freak of nature, athlete. God, yeah. He's living like a rock star. Lindsey Vonn goes and she knows, like, she's like, this is the life. My point is, like, at some point, like people that are that successful and go to extremes on certain things, it's not a shock that they may go to an extreme
on something
in
else.
Another area, right?
Because that's the way they're wired. Is we got to go to the extreme.
Exactly. So you have to kind of think about what's important to you.
Correct.
And look, that's not if he doesn't want to be faithful to his wife, that has nothing to do with me.
No, not at all.
But my point is, like, I actually didn't lose any respect for Lance Armstrong because I kind of already knew what was going on.
You knew what was going on,
and it wasn't a shock to me. So it's like, I'll never even think about that guy anymore. It's like, well, I actually trained with him at one point, and people are like, well, that's it's crazy. The guy, he's an evil person. I'm like, well, you don't understand what the sport was going through, and doing those sorts of things. So, all of these things, the thing is, you have to understand what is at your core values and going through that.
Most definitely.
So my core value was to be an investor and really have focus on my time and independence. We got on a little sidetrack there, but it's the same vision that led me there.
Oh yeah.
So the time came and I said, I'll be in med device sales as long as it's fun, I'm successful, and I'm making money, and it's not compromising my values. And what happened was, when I didn't have to do the job anymore in 2015 because my passive income replaced it, the doors opened up. Yeah. I actually enjoyed life more. I secured a huge contract, an $18 million contract,
love that.
Sole vendor agreement in our big account. And I actually walked away from that contract and gave it to my successors, and people thought I had lost the contract because I basically had resigned and went to a different company. And yeah, people were like, oh my gosh, like, what are you moving to Florida? You're doing this and doing that. I was like, no, like, what's going on? But people assumed that I didn't get it. They're like, how can you? One of my friends like, what do you hate money? Like, why are you walking away from this?
Oh my goodness.
But again, I had bigger things to do. Yeah. And my next chapter, we did our first syndication in 2016, bought a 100-unit building in Atlanta, Georgia, with my original partner.
I love that.
And that was kind of the next chapter that happened. And then, we were able to start bringing investors on board, which is interesting, right? So I had an MBA, went to grad school, working with surgeons, neurosurgeons. Some of these surgeons were making like $1 million a year.
Unbelievable.
They were asking me for financial advice, and I'm like,
because they knew what you were doing.
But I'm like, what's going on? And then, and you realize that, oh my goodness, like, people need to know.
They need to understand it.
About what else is out there in terms of investments.
They're so busy that they don't have enough time, especially doctors. We have a lot of doctors that invest with us, but they're so busy because they're working those long hours that they don't understand or don't have enough time to go ahead and do stuff like that.
And they haven't met somebody like yourself to know that there's other investment opportunities out there because, again, the conventional wisdom, remember, it's backwards, right? Oh, put your money in the stock market first.
Most definitely.
Well, wait a minute. No, I think you should put, like I said, our first money went into life insurance. Real secure, low risk. Then you stack passive income investments real estate. Then maybe you look at, stock market, private equity, those sorts of things to stack on that. That's how the ultra rich do it.
Most definitely.
So kind of long story short, our mission is to help others achieve financial independence through education and opportunities.
Love that.
So when I walked away from the med device career, really to focus on the family and growing this business, that is what really drives us and continue to drive us today.
I love that. Yeah. Love that. So Next Level, the company you have, when was that created? What year?
Yeah. So officially 2019.
So 2019 it was created. And how long were you in med sales?
Yeah. 18 years total.
18 years in total. Yeah. And with your company, Next Level, you have done phenomenal things. You've grown it in multiple different type of asset classes. What do you guys have? How much AUM now?
You've added all up, like we've done over almost $2 billion in total acquisitions.
Holy cow! Almost $2 billion in total acquisitions since 2019. And a lot of people
2016.
A lot of people will see that and be like, "Wow, that's such a short period of time." Yeah. But it took you 18 years to get there.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what they don't see. Is it
Overnight
took you that
success
struggle.
in 20 years.
Correct. It took you the 18 years, the relationships that you built. And then you said, okay, my ultimate goal as an investor, and this journey of 18 years of med sales has got me here, and now I'm going to use it. I'm going to use all the relationships to build, close to 2 or over 2 billion in transactions as a company.
Yeah. So this is our 25th year in terms of real estate. So obviously, as I mentioned, up until 2016, it was just me.
Yeah.
Right. It's just me and my wife and buying stuff. But that first deal was in 1999. And if you're starting out, just like, what's the saying? What's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago.
Correct.
What's the next best time? Do it today.
Now.
So if you're struggling, if you're like, oh, should I make an investment? Take action today.
Correct. You
Take action today. Yeah, find somebody, reach out, look at a deal, analyze a deal. Once you start getting your money moving and compounding, that's the magic, as I saw in that Money Magazine article way back in 1997.
Oh, most definitely. I wish I can keep you all night, but I can't. Cause
you can grab a bottle of whiskey. We'll keep it going, Chris.
Hey, let's do it. We can go. We can take this to Cigar Lounge. I'll enjoy that. I want to talk on health before we wrap things up.
Absolutely, yeah.
Again, I told that story at the very beginning, and I was just shocked. You
had me sweating there. I was a little embarrassed. But
no, don't be. I mean, you take your health serious, and that's what I saw. And I think it's super important. I hear this all the time. Is that when someone you can look at and you can see how healthy they are, how disciplined they are with their health and the way they work out, you can kind of get a good sense that they're that way when you work with them, because a business partner is a marriage as well.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the health side, because you have to be disciplined on that. And I know you're very disciplined in your business, like you touched on. You're not buying ice cream, but if it's in front of you, you may take a couple bites.
My wife still buys it, to be fair.
I know, right? But
and I will eat some.
100%. But you are not out there because you're disciplined to buy it yourself to eat it. Let's talk about, what do you do on a daily basis to make sure you're healthy so you can operate, because you're still out there biking on the street level.
Rode this morning,
And you are also mountain biking with your kids as well. I see that. And so what are you doing to make sure you have that right fuel? Because I know it's not those 3 McDonald's burgers or those chicken nuggets.
I couldn't tell you last time I ate McDonald's.
I can't remember either.
Yeah. So, again, it's going back to conventional wisdom.
100%.
So diet's really important, but the medical system that I worked in for so many years it's really good at a few things. It's really good at surgery. It's really good at acute care. So it's like, okay, if my car is in an accident, I know that I can take it to the shop and they're going to recreate it. Like, that's kind of 100%. The American healthcare system. Yeah. But what it's bad at is changing the oil and keeping the car running tip top.
Most definitely.
And it's crazy. But the problem, there's a lot of reasons for that. So the bottom line is you have to be the CEO of your own health. You have to be the CEO of your own health. You have to take responsibility. You have to learn these things. We have a functional medicine doctor that we work with.
I love that.
And
one thing I love interrupting you.
Yeah.
But we always have great conversations. Even in the car in Denver, Colorado, we have good conversations. You remember
We're
that?
not talking about that.
We won't talk about that one. But
there's some good lessons in that, though.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
One thing I truly love about you, Chris, is a lot. But you're really holistic. You came from the medical side. You've seen the drug side and things like that, and that's something that you and I definitely connect on. Is because I hate that type of stuff. I hate the pharmaceuticals. Let's go out and take medicine because something happened.
Quick fix.
It's like, why don't we be preventative? Let's think about the future. Why don't we take care of our body so we limit that stuff? Now, don't get me wrong. There's very healthy people. Like your friend Chris. And certain things can happen.
That's right.
To very healthy people, but if you are not eating these type of bad foods out there, you can limit that and live a longer life. And that's one thing I love, is that you are, let's look in the future to take care of ourselves by eating right, taking the right vitamins, having the right holistic doctors to say, hey, that COVID stuff is not right. Let's look at a different way.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, because I kind of think in frameworks. So as in that car in Denver, I was challenging my framework. It's like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Correct. Because we were in a diverse situation. It's like, well, I want to hear what the other opinions are. You have to think
it from another perspective.
And this is, again, this is important to the conversation, which is, if you never are around others that challenge your thinking and the way you think, or you won't accept someone else's opinion or kind of hear where they're coming from, then you don't really know if you have a strong opinion or if it's worthy. And that's what we saw that
I don't
night,
think you're
right?
growing either.
Yeah.
You're definitely not
That's right.
growing. You know, if you're not in rooms or having discussions with individuals that are going to challenge your opinions, that are going to challenge what you say, you know, you're essentially not growing. You're being stagnant.
That's right. Exactly. So you have to challenge and hear what other people's opinions are, because look, we gravitate towards confirmation bias. And if you're not familiar with that term, basically we like to have people tell us that we're thinking the way that we think is right. It's
Most definitely.
So like you and I get along.
People to say yes.
Right. We get along, and part of the reason we get along is because we agree on certain things.
Correct.
But we both think real estate's a great investment.
Most definitely.
We enjoy hanging out and talking about that.
Most definitely.
Of course we do. So if you're not getting the results that you want in your physical life with your physical health, maybe you need to listen to somebody else.
Yes, and have friends like you, where I know if you and I are in a discussion enjoying life, and I say something, you're going to say, "Hey, Chris, maybe this way," or let's think of it this way. You may not say, "Hey, Chris, you're 100% wrong," unless it's a fact and I'm 100% wrong, but you're going to give it to me in a different perspective. And you need people in your circle to challenge that, because it's going to challenge your wavelengths to think bigger and better.
Yeah, and look, we live in an amazing time.
Oh yeah.
So the doctor I work with, I think his website is OHHMD, Dr. Doug Lucas, and it's genetics-based medicine. I
love that.
So here's the thing, you hear, I should be a vegan.
So are you taking like a
I should
swab,
be a carnivore.
blood, all that?
Yeah. So like it's really easy to have your genes
analyzed,
mapped. And then, but the thing is, you can say, here's my genetic map. The question is, like, if I hand an untrained person a map, it's like, okay, well, what is this? Yeah. Like, what do I do with
Educate
this, right?
me on it.
Yeah, you need somebody to say, well, here's where you are. So once you know what your genetic map is, you need to take your blood work to know where you are, right? Like, what are your levels of this, and this, vitamins, hormones, all that stuff. And then where do you want to go, right? So the genetic map gives you that perspective. The challenge today is people are like, oh, you look good. What do you eat?
Correct.
Well, I got a story for you. I get my genes done. I go to my group that I'm working with. This was now 8 years ago. And they say, oh, you don't tolerate nuts very well. And I'm like, well, I eat nuts in the afternoon. No gay jokes. So I eat nuts in the afternoon. And I'm like, well, I should stop eating nuts. I'm like, well, what am I going to replace it with? Yeah. I see these coconut butter cups. I'm like, coconut's good for you.
Oh, love coconut.
I start eating coconut. So I start eating coconut because they're like, you shouldn't eat a lot of meat either. So I'm like, man, this is like, I don't have great genes.
You're limiting me here.
Oh, it's really a challenge for me to eat. Like, it's like, oh, you need to eat like fish, salad, fruit, and olive oil. Like that's kind of like, man, this is challenging. So I'm eating these coconut butter cups. I go back 3 months later and get my blood work done. The nurse goes, what are you doing? Are you like eating bacon every day? Like breakfast, lunch, and dinner? I'm like,
the coconut.
Yeah. She's like, what are you doing?
Oil
She goes,
on the coconut.
walk me through your diet. I go, I'm doing everything you told me. Walk me through your diet. I ate this for breakfast. I ate this for lunch. I was like, I even cut out nuts in the afternoon because you said I should limit those. What'd you replace it with? Oh, these coconut. She goes, Chris, that's saturated fat. I'm like, well, yeah, but it's coconut.
You think it's good, but it's organically. It's
my cholesterol and triglycerides went up like over 25% in 3 months from eating coconut. Now, if you go to a conventional doctor, traditional doctor, Western medicine, they're going to say, well, Chris, you probably have to go on a statin. You just have bad genes. You got bad luck.
Here's a prescription.
Cut it out. Cut out the coconut. It went right back down.
Most will say, hey, here's a prescription. Take those,
that's right.
And then that's going to have other side effects and other side effects.
Yeah, boom. So, food is first. Yeah. So food is a drug. Food is medicine. 100%. It's very important. So the cleaner you can eat, the better. Number two, I work out. I think working out about an hour a day is good. Yeah. I try to work out about an hour a day.
Most definitely. Do you do red light therapy?
Well, I have an infrared sauna.
Okay,
but I think there's a lot of value in red light therapy. We don't have a red light lamp. Yeah. But my normal routine, I try to lift 3 times a week.
Good.
And in kind of when I'm not riding a lot, I ride a lot in the summer, like this time of year. I usually ride 3 times a week. But I'll do like.
And when
CrossFit
you ride,
more.
like those are miles.
But I usually only ride 1 to 2 hours now.
And what's that equivalent to miles?
Yeah, so if it's flat, you could ride.
I was gonna say Asheville.
Asheville's different.
not flat. It's not Florida.
I could ride an hour and ride like less than 10 miles in Asheville just because
but you're going
I might
up
go
a
up
hill.
hills. Whereas, if I go to like Florida or I go to
Florida,
like
you'll ride the whole state.
Oh, where I grew up, we used to ride 100 miles in less than 4 hours in a group because
it's all flat. Yeah,
it's flat and you're riding fast with a group. And
you got to watch those shin splints when you're in those mountains.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So but like I just read an article this week. High intensity exercise is better than drugs for anxiety and depression. Yeah.
See, I love Orange Theory for that reason.
There you
I
go.
love Orange Theory Fitness.
Yeah.
You go in there, you have 1 hour, and I remember I go in a hoodie, sweatpants, and I crank it out. I can hit 900 to 1,000 calories in that 1 hour.
Yeah.
Boom, I'm done. I'm
Super
on about
efficient.
my day, and it's a total body workout too.
Yeah.
I'm not going in there just lifting one thing.
Yeah.
Boom.
I think Orange Theory is great.
Love Orange Theory.
CrossFit's great. You just whatever you do, you move into it slow.
Yeah.
I met my wife in
And
yoga.
stay consistent
I
with
love
it.
yoga. I don't do a ton of
Hot
it
yoga's
anymore,
good.
but hot yoga is
I
really
enjoy
cool.
hot yoga. I really do.
But I would say, look, my goal is a minimum of 5 days a week.
Love that.
50% strength, 50%, basic cardio.
Yeah, cardio
type stuff. And that could be running, walking, riding bikes. I mean, it could be, paddleboarding, whatever you're into, swimming. But I think strength is really important. Strength training.
You have to.
Because as you get older, the number one predictor of longevity is how much muscle mass you have. So I was under 150 pounds when I was racing. Now I'm more like 175. And I consciously cut the cycling down and increase
because
my
you need to when you get older.
Because I'm not a big guy, so it's hard for me to put on mass. So I was like, I need to do this before I get too old.
And so you really analyze your blood work, you analyze your health, and then you are
and
eating
sleep.
And you
wear
got
an
the
Oura ring. This told me I had COVID 2 days before I was diagnosed. 2
no
days
way.
Before I got sick. Yep.
I remember you telling me that.
The doctor made fun of me. She's like, "Why are you here? Like you have no reason
and
to be
you
here."
Said this ring.
So my ring
told you had COVID 2 days before.
That's right. All my stats were crazy.
And I love that you didn't go run and get the COVID shot. You did it the all natural way, which I had COVID as well back then, and I did it the all natural way.
Yeah, we could talk about that.
That's a whole nother podcast.
But again, the rationale behind that, it's like, well, if A
you're
is B,
ahead
B
of the
is,
game.
Yeah, you can look and see, and for me, the whole thing. And this might be controversial, but surrounding COVID. Remember, I worked in this field.
Correct.
I was with Pfizer for 2 years. So if you just say, okay, let's paint a picture. We're going to create a drug, any drug, and the government's going to guarantee we purchase billions of dollars of this drug. I forget what it was, $30 billion or whatever it was. And then, oh, by the way, if people get sick or something happens from it, they're not responsible for those people. How much of that drug am I going to sell if I'm the company?
A ton. I mean,
you and I
had conversations because we both know doctors in this field, and I've talked to doctors and I've asked them about it, and they've even said like they had to check the box that they had COVID. Like it was mandatory. Boom, yep, you had COVID.
Yeah, so it's like anything else in life. When you remove, this goes back to skin in the game with
Most
the kids,
definitely.
and it's like how do you get your kids involved?
Even in our investments as well.
That's right. Exactly. If I put none of my own money into an investment and I got paid 100% on the front end and I had no responsibility on what happened on the back end, I would buy as many deals as I could. I would get as many investors as I could because it's like, well, what's the downside?
Yeah.
And that's essentially what the government and the pharmaceutical companies did with COVID. So when you knew that, I was inherently very skeptical when I saw what was going on. So, again, it's like I'm not saying I predicted all that, but
you got a good sense of it.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with Lance Armstrong. It's like, well, if all 20 guys in the top, 19 of the top 20 guys in the Tour de France all tested positive.
If they're all juicing.
Except for Lance, it's kind of like, okay, it just, you have to kind of say, okay, what kind of makes sense?
Correct.
And then, so I wasn't surprised as the story unfolded with COVID, just like I wasn't surprised when the story unfolded with Lance either. That doesn't make it, that doesn't make it better.
Correct.
It just is.
Yeah, it is what it is. And I love that you're very proactive about your health because you have to be so you can operate a high business, so you can be
absolutely got to live like a pro athlete.
100%.
If you want to be a high performer in business, you have to be a high performer in every area of your life. Life is an energy game.
Most definitely.
And my son that my older son, he's 14, Ethan. He just graduated 8th grade, and he gave a graduation speech. They all got up and gave a speech. And there's something I told him about a month ago, and it brought me to tears because he said this at the end of his speech. Because they say, what's a piece of advice you give the 6th and 7th graders in school? And he said, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I think that's a great way.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
That's right. Take care of your body, take care of your business, take care of your family. How you do anything is how you do everything.
I love that. Yeah. I love that. Well, Chris, thanks so much. I know we ran a long time. We can go for hours on this, but thanks so much for joining me. It's been a wealth of knowledge, and excited to have you on in the near future as well.
Enjoyed it, Chris. Yeah, thanks for having me. And if you want a copy of the book, check us out at nextlevelincome.com. I'll send you a free copy.
There we go. And we'll make sure it's in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Thank you,
Chris.
Thank you for tuning in to the Chris Salerno Show. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and gained valuable insight to help you along your journey. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any questions or topics that you would like to cover, feel free to reach out directly to me. Shoot me a message on Instagram at Chris_Salerno_. Until next time, keep pushing forward and stay inspired.